Jennifer Mather pursues her research as a marine biologist in Lethbridge, Alberta, which is a town that hasn't been near or under salt water since the Devonian age. So Jennifer, we haven't met yet. Face to face, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
I'm going to get out of the way of the screen because I'm going to show you the animals on the screen. And this is really about them and not about me. I think it's fascinating that we have these 4 people in a group presenting because, in fact, the planet is about 3/5 marine. In fact, it turns out when the astronauts went out in space and looked down at it, they said, wait a minute, we've got the wrong name for this place. It shouldn't be Earth, it should be water. And yet we really don't know much about the oceans. And because we don't know much about them, I could go out not even very deep and find these dazzling animals in this dazzling system that nobody's really looked at before. And obviously, what I was interested in is, do squid make a visual language on their skin? Could I have the next one? I was thinking about it, and in fact, it's sort of like a murder mystery. If you're going to, let's see, you have to have the motive, you have to have the opportunity, and you have to have the weapon. Have I missed any? If you're going to make a language, you have to have the brains. Obviously, to put ideas together, to form them, to send them, to receive them, to understand them. And the octopuses and squid are known as the smart invertebrates, so we're safe there. You have to have the opportunity to signal to one another. You have to be in groups, and I'll get to that one in a minute. And you have to have the mechanism, and the mechanism is what I'm going to talk about first. Because it turns out that my animals are the real chameleons. Chameleons are pikers compared to my guys. My guys are really great. They're also, and I'll give you a parallel with this, pointillists. Can I have the next one? Remember the Impressionist painters who said, no, it's the general impression of things, not the exact details, that informs us. And you stand back a little bit and you can see it. The pointillists, and this is a Seurat painting, they said, it's really all about dots. Of course, that's true, and TV does this now too. But Seurat said, I can simply make dots and dots and dots and dots, and from it, I will form a whole scene. And so there's a detail on the right you can see, and there's the painting below. Next. Well, the octopuses and squid can do that too. On the right, I've got a picture of the chromatophores, and they in fact are brown and yellow and red, and you can only see the yellow ones and the brown ones, but take it for granted. Every single one of them has nervous control. So theoretically, an animal could turn on or off one chromatophore. Not only that, they can do it in 30 milliseconds. That's pretty good. And on the left is the impression. Can you see what it is? It's actually an octopus, not a squid. On the left side is the rock, and on the right side, feeling kind of intimidated by the photographer and clinging to it, is the octopus. If I could figure out how to use this. No.
Push laser. It says laser.
Aha. Okay, here's the octopus's arm, and you can actually see the suckers here clinging to the rock. Coming around here, there's the suckers. Here's the body here. The head's up here, and that's actually an eye. And there's some arm around here. There's the rock. And that's what the octopuses actually use this system for. They use it for camouflage, and they're superb camouflage artists and impressionists. Next. They can also use any pattern they like. Now, some of them are really very interesting. This one is actually one of our squid. This one's about that big. We used to call them squidlets because they really don't look like a squid, which grows to about a foot. And this one's doing plaid. And that's really obvious, isn't it? Okay, next. Okay, let's see if this will work. Now, this is a video because I wanted to show you how quickly they change. So here's a squid doing something called lateral silver. And he's going to turn it off. Oh, decided to turn it off. Now he's going to flash, and then you'll see, he'll just see, turn it on and off again. Okay, that's it, thanks. So in 30 milliseconds, they can change it completely. They can put whatever pattern they like on their skin, and they can change it like that. Okay, so we've got the colors. We know they can make a communication system. But then the question comes, well, a communication system's a lot different from language. Of course, that's true. So for instance, if you're listening to the robin out in the tree and it sings its robin song, we don't think of that as a language. What it says, and it says the same way over and over and over, it says, I am a robin, I'm a male robin, I am claiming a territory, I am a robin, I'm a male robin, I'm claiming a territory. Or as somebody said of this wonderful coo of the mourning dove, where it goes coo, coo, it means get out, get lost, go away. It doesn't sound right. Could I have the next one, please? When you think about language, it turns out that basically we think about language in terms of us. Obviously, what we have been doing all conference, vocal delivery, auditory pickup, that is how we work. Almost infinite creativity. I can say, I used to do this in my developmental psychology class, actually, when I was talking about the creativity of language. I said, actually, if you look in the girders there, there's a bunch of pink elephants going by. And the students sort of looked at me. Only one of them had the creativity to say back, the ones over the door are plaid. We don't have to tell the truth. We don't have to tell anything that has happened before. We don't have to tell the same thing that has happened before. We can talk about things that are displaced from us in space and time. I'll be going back home to Lethbridge on the weekend. And we can talk about things that never happened. We comment not only on our internal selves. I'm nervous up here on the stage. We also talk about the external world around us. And this balance of commenting on oneself and commenting on the world around is thought to be one of the hallmarks of language. We can also send and receive directionally. It's a little bit hard to do with a microphone. If I turned around, you could probably still hear me, but we can talk over there and we can talk over there. And we can combine units. And this, of course, is what we learn in elementary school with the noun and the verb and the adverb and the adjective. And big fish is slightly different from fish, okay? So this communication system that we have, that we call language, has many different characteristics. And it turns out that when somebody like me comes along and says, oh, I wonder if squid are doing a language on their skin, the people say, oh, well, this is what a language is. Does it match this? This, by the way, is a bit anthropocentric, meaning that the standard for the world is us, which, judging from what we've heard in the last little while, maybe it better not be. Could I have the next one? Okay, so they've got the display capacity. Now, in fact, the octopus doesn't use this skin capacity for communication because it's solitary. And one of the reasons I went to the squid to look at this is that these guys hang around in groups, which I think we'll see in the next picture. Next. This is the sea off Bonaire. This is a great research opportunity. I have a lot of difficulty with my colleagues because I come back from a month in the Caribbean where I've been diving offshore, working off a dive resort, and I come back tanned and relaxed and not necessarily relaxed. And my colleagues say, oh, did you have a good vacation? No, it was work. Mm-hmm. You can see, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the foreground and 5 more in the background. This particular species, the Caribbean reef squid, in fact, has a drive to be around other squid. When they're little, we can get up to 50 or 60, maybe even 100. Most of the adult groups we have seems to be 10 or 20. I suspect that's because if you start with 100, and you get to adulthood with 10 or 20, that's because all the others got eaten. Everything wants to eat them. Next. And this is what we do. With a lot of volunteers, I should add. We don't even do the deep and dangerous stuff. We simply snorkel, take notes, and this is the other side of this quote-unquote vacation. We're probably in the water for about 3 hours a day because we're right on the surface and this is easy. But on the other hand, we're at the computer for 3 hours a day, looking at our chicken scratches and saying, oh, okay, zebra with fin brown from Sam to Sally. No, it wouldn't be. It would have to be Sam to Fred, okay? Next. Okay, I wanted to tell you that we know the animals individually. I don't think you can really understand the behavior of any species until you're able to know which animal is which. And fortunately for us, there are differences amongst individuals. These are both males, and in fact, males have big and obvious dots along the fins that run along both sides of their body, and often we can pick them out by the pattern of their dots. But we didn't do this with lines. Lines is the one at the top. And if you look at his back end, you see there's dots over the mantle coming down in 3 lines. These were sufficiently conspicuous that we could pick them out. Now, the other advantage we have, and this is where we get hook, is that often these animals are the subject of predation attempts by fish that fail. And then they have these most wonderful scars. So I think I'm going to need laser for this one. There is a hook-shaped scar on Hook's fin. Can you see it? Yeah, okay. I still think I'm one of the few people who call squid by their first name. It strikes me as unusual. Next. What they do with these displays is they don't do an awful lot until they get to adulthood. Most of the displays that they use are sexual. Different ones for male and female, different ones throughout the length of the courtship. So in fact, above you have a female doing saddle, but it's not a very good saddle. And below you have a male doing stripe, but he's actually doing it on one side only, which I wanted to mention before. He's not bothered with displaying on the side where he knows she's not going to see it. He's only displaying on the side towards her. This is good economy of action. Next. One thing they do that is not sexual is that they put dots on their body when they're startled. And I've been fascinated to find out that actually I've got 2 of the 4 here. They can put 2 further forward and 2 further backward. And I've been working out this year and last year that they can tailor their dots according to which direction somebody's coming from. It's not 100%, but it's more likely that if a fish is coming up at them from the left, they'll put on the left dot or maybe both left dots. Okay? So they're clearly communicating something to the fish. And probably what they're communicating to the fish is, I am really the head of a way bigger animal. And I have these 2 eyes, and you really don't want to mess with me because my head's up here and there's this great big huge body behind, so leave me alone. It seems to work. Next. Now, one of the displays that I've spent the most time on, that I've been most fascinated with, is something called a zebra. Now, no self-respecting zebra would ever use this display because it's kind of rough vertical lines along the side of the body. The sepia, which is the cuttlefish, in fact, does a very good zebra. It really looks like zebra lines. But somebody looked at it and said, oh yeah, it looks like a zebra. It seems to be originally a frustration, and we're not allowed to say animals have emotions, but that's what it looks like to me. Okay? But it's been taken by the animal so that it's variable in terms of its intensity, in terms of the area it's on, and in terms of the color behind it. There's this huge variation in what the zebra does, and it's been taken all the way from just a signal of annoyance. They do zebras to fish occasionally, and the fish sort of go, yeah, so, to a formal contest, which you're going to see here between 2 males, where one will be above the other. Both will spread their arms, but the bottom one will spread its arms more. The bottom one is pale, the top one's dark. It's a ritualized contest. Everybody knows what it means, and the guy underneath wins. The guy underneath pushing up on the guy above as well. Thank you. Now we get to go back. So what does that mean for a language? They've got visual pickup of production of pattern on the skin. Very wide creativity. In different situations, they change the same display. And as I said, they've got this one that's gone all the way from being a sign of annoyance to a formal contest for status. They have directional sending and receiving, which we have, remember, in our language. They have what we've called double signaling. And I find this completely fascinating. A squid can put a dot on one side and a zebra on the other. Or it can put on this lateral silver on one side and a dot on the other. Now, we can't do that with our system. We can only talk one thing at a time. We can have hidden meanings in it. It's like, oh, isn't it nice to meet you? That's not quite what we mean. And often couples have hidden meanings behind the things that they say. So if my husband says interesting about something I've cooked, it means never again. But imagine what it would be like if we were at a cocktail party. Imagine out here in the entry, and we could actually talk two directions at once, full voice, and people could pick it up. Well, Squid can do that. It's fascinating. It's a good thing we don't have cocktail parties like that. It's bad enough hearing in normal cocktail parties. We don't need that too. So far, the squid don't match humans in one particular important way. They seem to be commenting on their internal self. I'm startled, I'm annoyed, I'm sexed up, I'm this, I'm that. I've seen very little of comments on external events. A little bit, but not very much. And they do indeed, and I haven't had a chance to show you this, they do combine the different units to make more meaning. So they'll put zebra on, and they'll turn the fins brown with the inner fins white, and they'll put a fin-based stripe on. Sort of like we combine verb and adverb, or noun and adjective. So this is what I've got so far on squid language. Does that make it a language? Well, I found myself thinking, no, but it doesn't make it a language if all we take is human language as the criterion. We're so used to it. You see, we say, we have a language. The linguists say, we have a language, and any other language has to match up to what we do and the way we do it, and if it doesn't, it's not a language. Well, I'm not sure. Can I have the next one? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe we need to think about what a language is. But meanwhile, I think they have a really fascinating communication system. And there they are looking back at you. Thank you.